Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
New polling from NBC News shows Americans no longer believe the economy is the most pressing issue facing our country. Threats to democracy have overtaken the cost of living. The poll also shows 57% of Americans believe the investigations into Donald Trump should continue.
The top issues, well, people say the top issues facing the country are, it is interesting, threats to democracy makes number one overall. If you add together cost of living and jobs and the economy together, they would come to 30%. If you merge those two as sort of similar, that would be number one, although that combined total is down a little bit from our last poll. But what I thought was really interesting was just to look at the partisan breakdown. How do the two parties look at the top issues facing the country? And you see some pretty stark differences on this one. For instance, you take the question of abortion, particularly after the Supreme Court decision, 15% of Democrats rate that as the most important issue facing the country, 5 times greater than the Republican number. Only 3% of Republicans rate abortion as the top issue facing the country. And then how about this for an imbalance? Immigration and the border, 2% of Democrats cite that as the top issue in the country. 15 times as many Republicans, 30%, rate that as the top issue facing the country. So there are some stark divides here between how each party universe looks at the big problems facing the country heading into this midterm.
So you can easily tell what channel they watch. I mean, that is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. But the number one issue for voters in 2022, in the 21st century America, is a threat to democracy, which is really bad news for Republicans, but really good news for democracy. Just saying. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I'm looking, at some of these poll numbers. This makes no sense to me at all. I mean, you could say to yourself, maybe, 21% of Americans are paying attention. That might explain the results of this. But it makes no sense that only 15% of Democrats and 3% of Republicans think that a ban on, choice, a ban on freedom is, anywhere in the top 5 issues. I'm sorry. I just don't think that. I think that poll right there might be an outlier. I have no idea. But the threat to democracy issue is an issue. It is. It's unbelievable. People are concerned and careful about thinking about politicians now as being a threat to our democratic way of life in the 21st century. I mean, that is the first time I've ever even seen that issue. Have you ever seen that issue in a poll? I've never even seen that show up. I've never seen it be a concern of any voter. Any voter in the history of polling. So it's pretty interesting. According to this, 47% want to see Congress be controlled by the Republican Party, and 45% want to see Congress controlled by the Democratic Party, with 8% undecided. So you can see that we have some talking to do to the undecided voters. You need to decide. You need to decide, like, now. Tomorrow is primary day in Florida. And, I already early voted, as I told you. But, here it's a closed primary. So if you're a registered unaffiliated voter, you don't even get a ballot. So that's why I still am registered as a Democrat, so I can vote. Because the Republicans, they run unopposed in this here state. Ron DeSantis is running unopposed in the Florida Republican primary. So why would you, even want to participate or I mean, it makes no sense. But I will tell you that swing voters in Florida are not completely sold on death sentence, and they're not completely delighted with little Marco. That's interesting to me. The general consensus for months in this here state has been that the governor is the reelect of death sentence is a walk. It's just a walk in the woods. It's nothing. It's done. And that, little Marco was going to cruise into another 6 years of absenteeism because the man never shows up for work. He never does. Ever, never. Okay. He has the worst attendance record of any senator. Did you know that, Florida? Did you? Just saying. So they did a focus group, the Bulwark which is, kind of Republican as a group, they did a focus group with Florida voters. And they specifically asked for people who were Trump voters up until the last election, who could not make themselves hold their nose and vote for this lying sack of personality cultism. And so they called them, in, and they did a focus group with them. And they asked them to describe DeSantis. And the words that they heard the most often were power hungry. It's a hyphenated word. Power hungry, petty, opportunist, egotistical, anti-abortion, bull in a china shop, don't like his revenge politics with Disney. I mean, some people in Florida have had it with this man. They really have had it. Now, let's just hope that they show up in the general election and vote, because the primary, he's unopposed, as I've mentioned, right? But this man is very busy campaigning for other Republican, anti. First of all, I got to tell you that he appeared this weekend, DeSantis did, with another election liar, Doug Mastriano, who wants to be governor of Pennsylvania, and actually said out loud that the reason he's running for governor of Pennsylvania is because he wants to turn you, Pennsylvania, into Florida.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. We heard from him and his team a couple weeks ago asking if we'd be interested in doing a rally in Pittsburgh. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Heck yes, because my goal as governor of Pennsylvania is make Pennsylvania the Florida of the North, because he set the gold standard for the good a governor can do leading a state.